As promised, here is a rectangle, a granny rectangle. The difference between a granny square and a granny rectangle is obviously the rectangle shape. So I'm going to show you how I create a rectangle when I want to do a granny rectangle or turn a blanket into a wider than longer or vice versa kind of blanket using a granny rectangle as the beginning. So on this you will see that I have 3 rounds, 1, 2, 3, but because it is a rectangle, the side is wider and it has 5 granny clusters. As I explained in my granny square video, the granny square, you can tell how many rounds you've gone simply by counting the sides. On a granny rectangle, it's different, and that is because you have extra clusters on the side to build it up lengthways or widthways, whichever way you're going to use this particular pattern. Now, there are many ways to make a granny rectangle. This is just the way I do it. I don't know that anybody else does it the same way as me. It's just not that important to me to find out. I'm sorry, I'm being honest. However, I want to show you that there are several ways to get a rectangular shape with the granny square while still using the granny square stitch or the granny cluster. In this particular instance, this rectangle is approximately 5.5 inches across at its width and approximately 3 inches from the short side to the short side. So depending on how you want to do this and what you need the rectangles for, you need to be able to understand how big you're making them. So by measuring them when you've got one done like this, it's a 5 by 3 essentially. So if I make a blanket that is 45 by 60 inches, I know that 12 of these wide, if I had put 12 wide, it would be 60 inches wide. And for 45 inches, I would need to do 15. So 15 by 12 would give you 45 inches by 60 inches. And you can make a whole blanket just using this as your pattern. Just making, you could do all one color, multiple colors, however you wanted to do this. You could use a rectangle to make a blanket, crib size, king size, queen size, whatever size you want. And that's all just by knowing your tension, your stitches, and how long and how wide your rectangle is. So this is 5 inches wide by 3 inches long, and that's by looking at it like this. It's 3 inches tall, 5 inches wide, however you want to say it. For me, I just know that if I wanted to make a blanket that was 45 inches by 60 inches, which is the standard throw size, I would need 12 of these tall and 15 of them wide to make it that size. So 12 tall would be 36 inches this direction, or if you go this way, 60 inches this direction. So math is important. Being able to know math and to figure out sizes and stuff like that is important. For reference, I generally do not block anything I make. This does not need to be blocked. It is straight. It is the size that it needs to be. If I was using this for a specific project, it would already be figured out. I don't need to block it to make it 5 inches wide. It's already 5 inches wide. So there's no blocking needed. And I know there are people who are going to just scream blasphemy that I don't block things. Too bad. I'm 59 years old. I've been doing this for 50 some years. I'm not going to change now. There's a second way I can make a rectangle, and that is by putting 2 squares together. Now this one's considerably larger than the rectangle I just showed you because I have crocheted 2 granny squares, and I have crocheted them together in the join as you go method. And there are many videos, many good videos online on YouTube that show you how to do a join as you go method for your crochet squares. So you can look those up. I can do a video like that at some point for the specific reason of showing you how I do it, but there are many good ones out there. I'm just going to show you the size difference with the one that I made as a rectangle and the 2 that I put together from squares to make a rectangle. So here is the difference. We already know that this is 5 by 3 or 3 by 5. So, and we know that each one of these squares is 4 inches. So if technically, if we're going to measure this, just to confirm what we know, this should be 8 by 4 or 4 by 8, however you say it. I'm just saying it the way I'm looking at it. And if we look at that, yes, from this side of the square to this side of the rectangle, sorry, that side of the rectangle to this side of the rectangle, it is 8 inches. The size on the side doesn't change because these were 2 4-inch squares that I crocheted together to make the rectangle. Totally personal preference how you want to turn squares into rectangles, or if you want to just work a rectangle like I'm about to show you. It's very easy, and I will explain the anatomy of the stitches as I make them so that you understand when I say certain words what I'm referring to. So with that, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and use the same green yarn. It does show up pretty well, and against this book that I'm using here, I'm going to go ahead and do a chain stitch. Here I'm going to start with a slip knot, and then I'm going to chain 13. So I have 13 chains here to make my rectangle. The front of the stitches, the front of the chain, you can see the V's that are created as you chain. On the back side, you can see the bump. This is called the back bump. Many of us use this back bump when we are doing anything that requires a chain stitch. And on this particular case, I'm going to use the back bumps to create my first row of double crochet clusters. So you're going to skip the first 3 chains from your hook. That's this one right here, 1, 2, 3, and in the back bump of the 4th one, you're going to start your double crochet clusters. And all you do there is you just slide your hook through the back bump, and you pick up your loop, your yarn, and you go ahead and crochet a double. So through the back bump, wrap your yarn, pull through 2, and pull through 2. First cluster worked, okay? Now you're going to skip 2 of the back bump. So here's the first one, there's the second one, and you're going to work in that 3rd back bump here, okay? This is the 2nd crochet cluster. And you're going to go ahead, wrap your yarn, and do your double crochets in the back bump only on this first pass. Skip 2 and work into the back bump. And then you have 3 back bumps left, and you're going to skip 2 and work into that third back bump, or the very first chain stitch that you made, and do your 3 double crochet cluster. And what you have is something that looks like this. You have 4 3 double crochet clusters in your chain stitch. Now you're going to chain 2, and in that same last back bump, or that same chain stitch, you're going to start your corner. So you're going to go ahead, chain 2, and do 3 double crochets in that same space. Okay, and here you're going to see me work over my yarn again. I'm going to flip it through, and as I do, I'm going to weave it in and out, so there's no yarn tail for me to crochet in or weave in at the end of this. The good thing about this is it hides the yarn tail. You don't have to try and figure out how you're going to sew it in or weave it in at the end, and you've already got it worked in, so you don't have to do an extra step after you're done. So now you've got the 4 clusters across the chain. You've got a chain 2 and 3 double crochet cluster in that same end loop. Chain 2 and do another 3 double crochet cluster in that same chain space, that same chain loop from before. Okay? And now you have officially made one end of the rectangle. You have your 3 double crochet cluster, chain 2, 3 double crochet cluster, chain 2, 3 double crochet cluster. That is one end of your rectangle. Very simple. Now, as you see, you can see where the stitches were all done in the back loop of that first chain stitch, chain as you went across there. You're going to use those as the next place for your next cluster. So you're working in the other side, or the V, you see that V, of the chain stitch. So we're going to do 3 double crochets into that same area, that same space from where you made your clusters on the first pass, or the first round of the rectangle. And just continue. No chain spaces between clusters. The only time you do chain space or chains is when you're doing a corner. And now we have something that looks like this. So we're getting ready to do the other end of this rectangle, and we need to work in that same space, that same chain that we put our first 2 clusters in. And we're going to do the same thing on this end as we did at the other. So we're going to go ahead and do a 3 double crochet cluster, chain 2, 3 double crochet cluster in this same chain space. Okay, now we've done 3. We're going to chain 2, and I've got 2 sides, and this is your chain stitch where you skipped those first 3 stitches to make your first double crochet. So that's why it looks like that. This is totally like you would do a double crochet on your granny square where you first build it up. Okay, so now I've got a cluster and a cluster. I need to make this a corner. Okay, so I've chained 2, and I'm going to do 3 more double crochet into that same chain from the first round, and we're going to build up the corners on this rectangle. Now we have our rectangle shape. We have 1, 2, 3 corners, and here is the 4th corner of that rectangle. We're going to do like I always do, and that's chain 1 and then join with a single crochet in the top of the chains from the first round to set ourselves up for the next round on our rectangle. Chain 2 and turn it so that you can work with it. And now we're going to do 2 double crochets over that single crochet, and we're going to continue around making this rectangle. And you will see this builds up very quickly for you because it is wide and it is a granny square in premise. Okay, it's not a square actually, as we know, but it is in the same family as the granny square. You're just going to continue to work your granny square stitches on the rounds all the way around with 3 double crochets granny cluster in each space around till you get to a corner. And once you get to the corner, then you add chains into the mix. Not until you get to the corner. And I know people are out there screaming right now, I can't believe you're not chaining between your side clusters. There's no reason. You see how well it keeps everything open. Everything just lays nice and neat. Now I'm at the corner, and I'm going to treat this like a corner because it is. Just because it's a rectangle doesn't change the fact that it needs corners. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets into this corner. And we're going to set up the side for the next round. So I have a corner here and it goes to a corner here. Okay, no chain, go ahead, work over that tiny little piece of yarn tail, hiding it into the background, and it just disappears from view. 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, corner made. And you just continue around so that you have your rectangle created. So I will put in 3 more side clusters here, a corner, and then finish this corner. Now I've worked all the way back around on that side, and you can see the construction of this rectangle. I've got my 3 sides completed, and I'm finishing up this 4th corner here. I've done the 3 double crochet. I will chain 1, and then I will single crochet into that first loop or the second loop of that first chain and complete that to complete the round. So now I've got it set up for another round of double crochet or the granny cluster stitch in my rectangular shape. And if we continue with this, you would chain 2 and do your double crochet and a double crochet to make the first half of that first corner. Your first corner, your last corner, however you want to, whatever you want to call this, however you see it, that's what this is. Then you go ahead and work your sides across here, and when you're measuring this or you're reading it, you've got 2 rows here, and you've got a total of 5 clusters across the wide side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2 for a round. So however it helps you to remember is totally up to you, but for me, I just count from the first diagonal. I know I've got 2 rounds on this from 1, 2. When I do another one, it'll be 3, and then as I build up on it, you know, it could get more. So there's 1, 2, 3 rounds on this rectangle, and there's 2 rounds on this. That is just a way to keep track of what you're doing, and when you're looking at it, you don't have to actually try and guess. You can already know from the simple little tricks of counting your rounds by diagonal or by the sides. So a rectangle is going to give you a bigger count on the side, but a diagonal is going to give you the row count this way. The round count is 2. The side has 5 building up to 6 now. That's the difference between a rectangle and a granny square. A granny square you can count either from the center diagonally, so 1, 2, 3, 4, or from the side 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope that helps you to understand creating different things with granny squares, turning them into different shapes. I can do a granny triangle. There are granny hexagons. There are different geometric shapes and sizes and things out there that can be put together. And the good thing about granny cluster stitches is generally, if you can make it, you can build it into something else. So if you wanted to use the rectangles with the granny squares, you would automatically know that for a rectangle that has 6 clusters on one side, you would need either a granny square that matches that with 6 clusters, or 3 cluster granny squares, or you can make it as big as you want it to. It's a simple, very effective way to get a lot of things made from the same kind of pattern and same kind of template. You can use this as a way to make anything that requires squares. If you have a diagram for a sweater, or you can use rectangles in place of squares. The possibilities are endless on this. So as I crochet, I think about all the different things that I can make, and the different ways that they would look, the different color combinations, all of those things come into play. So when I'm making a square blanket or a rectangular blanket, I use this template in my mind as how I can put together different shapes to make them into something beautiful and something effective for crochet, something you can complete easily. Granny squares, granny rectangles, granny hexagons. You can even do granny circles. Granny circles are used in a lot of things like hats, blankets. There's the granny cluster stitch is a very diverse stitch. So please feel free to, use this, figure out new ways that you can put them together and create things on your own creative wavelengths, or however you want to say that. I'm a very creative person, and I've made hundreds of things over the years. I would dare to say probably thousands of things. And when I first learned crochet, I was 5 years old. My aunts taught me how to crochet because back then they didn't have a word for ADHD or autism or whatever particular brand of special that I am. They only knew that I was a busy child, and they wanted me to learn something to keep me out of their hair and keep me busy. And so one of them taught me how to do crochet. She taught me how to do the chain stitch, and then she taught me how to do a granny square. So for the first 7 years or so, all I made as a child were granny squares. And then when I was 12 years old, I learned to read patterns. I taught myself how to read patterns because somebody took me to a library, and I got to read some books, and the world was open for me. I didn't have YouTube when I was 12 years old. I didn't have anything like that available to me, so I had to be self-taught. What I have learned over the years, most of it I have taught myself. So just a little background in who I am and why crochet is such an integral part of my life is that story. I was raised by my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, and they wanted to keep me busy because I was a very inquisitive child. I was curious about everything, and crochet stuck with me. So I'm 59 years old. I've been crocheting for approximately 54 years, and that's what you get from my videos. I hope you have a great day and that this was something very helpful to you. Thank you for watching.